This is the theme to the show. This show is all about you. Not you, but you and your stories. Because everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Brought to you by JeffSeltzer.com.
Hello and welcome to Everybody's Story with Jeff Seltzer. I am your host, Jeff Seltzer, and I am joined this week by my co-host, Marcus Perkal, aka Marcus Brandon, aka Marcus Music. Marcus, thanks for joining and Happy New Year. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Jeff. Happy New Year to you as well. Excited to be on another episode of Everybody Has a Story with Jeff Seltzer.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So for those of you at home, this is not your normal episode. This is dropping on New Year's Day at midnight. So hopefully as soon as the ball dropped, Eastern time, you checked out your podcast app and poof, here came this episode. So this is episode 63. I know last week I'd mentioned that I'd probably take a little time off, but I was like, you know what? I'm inspired, right? So lots of things that I'm excited about, lots of things that I think happened in 2025 I want to talk about, things I want to share. Marcus, I was chatting with him and he's like, hey, let's just do it. So a lot of cool things I want to talk about. So real quick before we get into the show, we'll keep the everything brief up front. As a reminder, on Instagram, Everybody Has a Story Pod, DMs are open. TikTok, Everybody Has a Story Pod. You can reach the show by email, everybodyhasastorypod@gmail.com. For all things Jeff Seltzer, you can check me out at jeffseltzer.com. Go to everybodyhasastorypod.com if you want to once again see my live commentary I did at a wrestling show back in May. It was a lot of fun. I'll talk about it later in this episode. As a reminder, we are on video and Spotify and YouTube, audio everywhere else, including Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Pandora, anywhere else you can find a podcast. So with all that out of the way, I did want to talk about 2025. And now that we're in 2026, or I guess by the time this drops, it'll be 2026. So first of all, every year I create goals for myself. I create some kind of New Year's resolution or whatever you want to call it. For me personally, personal goals mean a lot more for me than goals that are given to me. So I know at work, we're always given like, hey, these are your objectives for the year. This is what you're supposed to do. For me, I mean, obviously I do everything I can to achieve them, but at the same time, they're not as meaningful as goals that I set for myself. When I, sit back and think to myself, like, hey, what do I want to do in this upcoming year? Those are the ones that like mean the most to me because they're the ones that I set and the ones that I want to achieve. So I'm going to start off before we're going to Marcus. I'm going to talk about what my 2025 goals were. So I had one main goal. Obviously, I had a lot of like mini goals and milestones along the way. My main goal was to get an average of 10,000 steps per day for the entire year. For me, this was a huge personal accomplishment that I was working towards because previous to 2025, my highest steps per day for the year was I think like 72 or 7,300. So going from 7,300 to 10,000 is a significant, pickup, right? A large increase in terms of steps per day. I don't naturally step 10,000 steps per day because I am, as I am in most parts of my life, very efficient in everything that I do, including from getting from point A to point B. But what I will say, so as we're recording this on December 30th, 2025, at 11:15 a.m., as of now, I am averaging 10,004 steps per day. So basically, I need to finish off today with probably about 10,000 steps, and then Wednesday, which is New Year's Eve, about 10,000. And then with that said, I should hopefully get to, the 10,000 for the year. And then I can check off the box that I did that. And I'll feel really good about it. As I've mentioned earlier or in previous episodes, I'm waiting to feel energized or feel energetic from all this extra activity I'm doing. I just feel very tired, but I'm also 48 years old. And I guess that probably just comes with it. Before talking about my 26 goals, Marcus, do you have any 2025, I guess, New Year's resolutions or goals that you'd set for yourself and how you're looking at versus what you set?
Yeah, I actually do. My first one was I wanted to be on this podcast 6 times this year.
Amazing.
And I have accomplished that was not a goal. But I did just feel the need to say that I've been on 6 times this year. 6 times total, but they've all been this year. I believe this is my second time as a co-host, which yes. I don't know if anyone else has done that. I know technicality that Daniel Ireland's been on 7 times. He co-hosted. No, he hosted once.
He hosted.
He co-hosted.
No,
he could. No, never. Okay.
Daniel's never co-hosted. So
I didn't know if he was considered co-host for the PWJ show. So then, yes, that's a distinction I have myself.
That is
So
exciting.
I just wanted to make sure as you said, you're a numbers guy. I just wanted to make sure I got that number in there.
Of course.
I will say my goals, at least last year, and maybe this is something I'll look to in 2026. My goals were not numbers oriented. They were more so habits that I was looking to really, to like bring into my life. One of which was just working out more, which I know that sounds very vague, and I will say I really had a pretty low bar. I had put on a good amount of weight in 2024. I have a Peloton. I love riding Peloton. I really had just stopped using it. And I definitely ramped up in the tail end of this year. I would say probably the last 6 months or so, really ramped up my Peloton. At this point, my numbers when I ride are better than they've ever been before.
Amazing.
Peak COVID in 2021, when I only had one child and we were stuck at home. That was like my only source of entertainment, other than, watching whatever sporting events were coming back. So that's been great. I've lost about 40 pounds this year.
Awesome.
So while I didn't put a weight loss like number goal out there, working out more, 40 pounds to show for it is a huge success for me. Another one was being more social, similar to what I, just went back to with COVID, 2021. We moved to, I live in South Carolina now. And I had lived in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut my whole life. So we moved to a place where we didn't really know anyone. And when we moved down here, it was during COVID times. My wife was pregnant and we really kind of like kept to ourselves. We slowly started to make friends, but this last year, with my older daughter starting at kindergarten, we, made a whole slew more friends, through your kids, as people do. And it's been great to, get out there, have fun, meet new people, kind of build myself a social circle that I feel like I've really been lacking since, COVID shut the world down in New York City in 2020.
Yep.
So those are 2 goals that I did hit. I have 2 that I didn't really accomplish. And I'm actually not going to mention them right now because I have a feeling what are 2026 goals. And I'm going to give them both another shot.
Awesome. So first of all, again, thank you for sharing as always. I'll say this. I had the same thing too, in the fact that my daughters are in high school, but a number of my best friends that I have locally here were through them, like in terms of like they were in a play and I, hung out with their parents while the kids were in the play. So just kind of hanging out and kind of socializing. So that's, Beth and I are a little more introverted, I guess, than some people are. Again, weird for someone with a podcast to say, but kind of is what it is. But I mean, that's kind of more of a natural, I guess, like, hey, how's it going? Kind of like through work or stuff like that, as opposed to, going and trying to meet in like, I'm not going to go to a party that I don't know anybody and try to strike up a conversation, because for me, it just feels very unnatural and exhausting, I guess. As for the, as you said, your 2025 and 2026 goals, I appreciate that, you may not necessarily have hit the ones that you set for 25 or some of them, but, any kind of progress towards it is helpful, right? Like sometimes, I mean, I don't know about you, I often have moved the goalposts to myself, right? Like I set 10,000 steps as the goal for 2025. And there were points during the year where I was like significantly higher. During the summer, I was able to walk more. When I would go to like Disney or Universal, I'd have like huge step days. So then I would have days where like, if I didn't get 11,000 steps, I'd start beating myself up. And I'm like, come on, Jeff, that's not the goal here. The goal here is 10,000. 10,000 is already a ridiculous goal versus previous. Let's just be realistic with ourselves. And, if we want to get to 11,000 at some point, that's great. But just kind of be mindful of like, enjoy and celebrate the wins and not necessarily say we didn't beat it by enough, so it's not really a win,
Yeah, totally. I mean, and I'm down with that. You know me well enough to know that I also, am someone who, to an extent, if I accomplish my goal and it was a numbers oriented goal, that I'll push that further. Again, working out, like I can't say like, oh, I didn't hit my workout goals when there wasn't a goal. But when I say, what these other 2 are, like, one, it was a problem I was looking to fix, and to be frank, like the problem has gotten worse. So there was maybe a little progress, but we backpedaled on it. And these are also not like they're goals that are also the kind of things that I enjoy. So like for me to say like, oh, I failed at it this year, I'll give it another go next year. Like, isn't me saying I failed. It's like, oh, this is something I'll enjoy doing. Like, let me, like work harder on that. And then the other one, we like, I did well at it for about 2 months. But it's something I think it's more of a mental health thing. And I wouldn't say I failed at it. And even if I had completed this, in 2025, I feel like it's being super vague. So what we did was my wife and I started, there's a podcast I listen to, Insight with Chris Van Vliet.
Yes.
It's a wrestling podcast where he just interviews, wrestlers and also like comedians, and it's mostly wrestling. And he ends every single episode with asking his guests what are 3 things that they're grateful for. And I feel like at some points, everyone, maybe you're feeling a little down, and you start to focus on like what's wrong, not what's right. And like, you kind of had sent me a list of like what you wanted to discuss on this podcast and sum up 2025. And I pretty quickly responded to you. I was like, you know what? 2025 was way cooler than I thought. My wife and I had tried to incorporate this, 3 things that we're grateful for every morning and night when we woke up before we went to bed. Awesome. And we lasted about 2 months doing it. I think that's probably aggressive. Maybe we'll just try to do it once a day. And we were writing it down. Maybe we'll just try to do it once a day. But, it's a great exercise to help you focus on the good. So even if I had done it for all of 2025, it's something that I would say, hey, 2026, a goal. I want to do this again because I think it's a great thing for your headspace.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love to hear that. Oftentimes, life gets tough, work gets tough, and we tend to focus on the negatives. Completely agree. Generally the positives outweigh. It's like the example I always give my buddy Scott whenever I'm gambling, because I do gamble from time to time. To win $50, the happiness and excitement that I feel is nowhere near the negative that I feel if I lose $20. Right? Like for whatever reason, there's like some kind of like multiplier on a negative feeling versus a positive feeling. And I can't explain it, but it's just weird how it is. And the fact that like a lot of good or a lot of great is, overshadowed by a very small amount of bad, which it's just the way that we're wired, I guess,
Yeah. And the thing is, there's also, what this really came down, this was a great exercise for me. Like this almost was looking back and saying what I'm grateful for the last year. And there's things that, not necessarily that it's the multiplier, but just things that like in the moment were great. And then either they kind of get pushed back in your brain, or to be honest, as I started looking at stuff, I was like, I thought that was last year. And no, that happened this year. Right. So, just kind of a good retrospect. I spent a lot of time like looking through photos on my phone, finite of like going back to, January 1, just kind of trying to jog my memory on things. It was a good exercise, if I'm being honest, definitely healthy.
Awesome. Very cool. So maybe we'll end this episode with 26 goals, as that'll be kind of, what we're trying to go towards. Let's talk through some 25 memories before we get there. So let's start off with some favorite personal moments. I have a few, but I'd love to hear your, when you look back at 2025 and you think back in terms of like what you enjoyed the most or what made you happiest, right? What would you say were your top 3 moments that you very much enjoyed experiencing, that you look back with fondness and you're like, that was amazing. Love that.
Yeah. So this is not necessarily like a moment, and I've already mentioned this, but losing 40 pounds is something that, especially when I was looking back at pictures, like seeing what I look like in January versus now, that's definitely a personal, like a moment for me. And it was maybe many moments, but if I had to like try to make one moment from that, it was, I set, a personal record on the Peloton that I had told my wife a couple months ago. I thought it was unattainable. I literally, on my Peloton, the strategy that I'm a very competitive person, which really doesn't bode well for someone who has no athletic ability. So what I love about the Peloton is that I can gamify it in a way where I can compete against other people and they don't know if I'm just find, one of my friends' scores and try to beat that, or look back at my old numbers. So what I actually did was I reset all of my Peloton PRs just by, it's a feature on where you can go and like set a new start date. So I put my start date, I went back a year.
Okay.
And then what I was able to do is I was able to go and find the best ride I had done in 20 minutes in the last year. And I would do that ride again and keep my numbers on screen from that ride and just try to beat it by 2.
Awesome.
And I did that and I did that and I did that. And it was slow. And then all of a sudden I was trying to beat it by 2, but I would beat it by 10. I would beat it by 15.
Yeah.
And then eventually I had the confidence. I removed that buffer and I texted you when this happened. I like tried to find my old PR, which is a number I thought was unattainable.
Yeah.
And that ride, for whatever reason, is no longer on Peloton. And I was like, this is a huge issue for what I'm trying to accomplish. So I just really spent a lot of time. I found a ride that I thought the music was really going to motivate me, picked an instructor I liked, and I went out and I beat that number. And that moment when I got off the bike, physically in that moment, I felt awful. I thought I was going to throw up, but I knew that once I overcame that, how big of an accomplishment this was for me. And it was really exciting. So that's, I wouldn't say that's number one per se. I just came up with 3 moments.
Of course,
but that's
out of order. Yep, unranked.
The next one was I took my 5-year-old Lexi to her first WWE event in Atlanta. We were supposed to go for just 1 show. We ended up going for 2. The whole moment was, I know I'm going to use this same phrase when I talk about my next one, but it was, I saw the magic. Like WWE, we went to an all-women's show, which I thought was really important to keep her interest. And to be honest, at this point, she's already more or less over WWE. If there was an event that was close, she would want to go.
Sure.
But she's over it. But I really grabbed this moment. They hadn't done a women's show, only women's show in years. And it was driving distance from us. I mean, it was a 4.5-hour drive if you don't get a flat tire, which we did. But it was everything I could have dreamt for and more. And I will discuss this more in depth later, but that was one of them. And then the last one was I took a Disney cruise with my wife, my 2 girls, my mom, and my brother, my sister-in-law, and my niece and nephew for my mom's birthday. And it was one of those things where like it didn't even take looking back to be like, oh, this was awesome. It was in the moment. Like we step on a boat and literally Mickey is there, grabs your daughter's hand and starts walking them around the boat, and they're just like, again, it was the magic.
So great. Yeah.
So that cruise itself was like our big family vacation this year. And it was awesome. It was
amazing. So first of all, thank you for sharing. All of them sound incredible as an outsider, and I'm sure you experiencing it, with your family in different ways is amazing. Like I'll say, so my favorite personal moments for this year, I kind of bucket similarly as well. So for me, I kind of look at the first one is I've got a couple of trips that I took just me and my wife. So me and Beth, in May, we went to California together. We did Disneyland, we did Universal Studios Hollywood. And part of the Universal Studios Hollywood was they had a fan fest spectacular where we got to go like on the lot and get pictures with like the Back to the Future town square and the clock tower. Like for me, that was just like a life event, doing it at all. But experiencing it with my wife was just amazing. And just kind of, for me, a little bit of a preview or a teaser of what retirement could look like. My girls are in high school, very realistically, they go to college soon. Eventually they live their own lives. And it's just, my wife and I, which, for a lot of people can be a scary time. For me, I can't wait. Like I absolutely cannot wait until it's just me and my wife. And, we can vacation on a whim. We could do all sorts of stuff. And planning in theory gets a little bit easier. So for me, that was amazing. Other trip that I took with her this year, we went to Toronto. I always joke that we took basically a residency at the Rogers Center where we were staying in one of the rooms at the Rogers Center where the Blue Jays play, where we had a view of the field. And we spent, I think it was like 3 nights or so, like just basically in our room, you look out the window and the field's there. So we saw a couple of baseball games. We watched them break down the field and set up the field for the weekend who was performing that weekend. So it's just a really just amazing experience with her. But again, like I said, for me, it's a case of, retirement will be here before I know it. And just understanding like that's what life could be like more often. I can't wait for it. Other part I would say would be vacationing with the family. So we took a few vacations as a family this year, the 4 of us, me, my wife, and my 2 kids. But I think my favorite trip that we took was in November. We went to Universal Studios Orlando for an after hours event where it was a separate ticket, limited attendance to the parks, no lines really for any ride. Food's included. It was just a great experience, and recognizing that my older daughter is 18, will be going to college soon. And I don't know how many more family trips we're going to be able to take because, I mean, we've all been there before. Once you go to college, you get a different life in terms of experiences, jobs, internships. Schedules are different. I mean, even starting next year, my girls' spring breaks will be different weeks. So just understanding that things will change. So recognizing this might be one of the last, let's say, true family trips that we take. Just in my eyes, as it was happening, just recognizing it and just enjoying the moment, enjoying it through their eyes, enjoying it through my eyes and stuff like that. And then lastly, I would say would be some of the other trips that I took. So every year I go to Halloween Horror Nights, also at Universal Orlando, hanging out with my friends Jay and Chelsea, meeting Mary Kate for the first time in person, all sorts of stuff like that. It's just a great time.
Getting sick.
Getting sick at Chili's bathroom, absolutely throwing up there, throwing up at Full Sail University. It was great. But, being halfway serious for a second, it was a great time. The houses at Halloween Horror Nights were amazing this year between the Y6 House, the Five Nights at Freddy's, Terrifier, lots of great stuff. I could go on. I mean, I do definitely feel blessed in terms of like what I can experience, how my life is. But like I look back at 2025, and while there were obviously some tough moments and challenging moments, I had my first real friend pass away, which was obviously very difficult. But I mean, as I get older, I'm trying to come to grips with the fact that happens, right? Like I'm in my late 40s. None of us are immortal, so that's going to happen. So trying to, enjoy the time with my friends, my family, enjoy the moment, and recognizing that they won't last forever. So that was, 2025 was a year, lots of things. Marcus looks like he went offline for a second, so I'll talk about another moment while I'm waiting for him to come back. Taking Robin to Lincoln Park, seeing Lincoln Park in concert where I thought I'd never see them again. That was pretty amazing. Had a lot of fun with that. Going with the family to see Sabrina Carpenter. That was fantastic. Great time. Everybody wanted to see it. We all saw, had a great time. And then taking Robin and Allison to go see Jonas Brothers. That was quite a show. Really, really enjoyed the concert. Had a lot of fun. And then last big concert I went to this year was me and a couple of friends went to go see Weird Al Yankovic, which I grew up as a Weird Al fan. Lots of fun. Weird Al was great. But what I will say is for me, the best part about the Weird Al concert was that afterwards I got to go and I bought the VIP, so I got a picture with Weird Al, which was really, really great. So again, lots of great moments in 25. I am very blessed, I guess, as I said, in terms of things I can experience, and I'm hopeful to continue going forward. Looks like Marcus is back with his internet issues not being there anymore, so we will continue at this point.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Wanted to jump in though.
Of course,
talking about the Rogers Center. That is like I've I've stayed at that hotel for a college bowl game. And it's just like it's a really tough experience to describe. Like you would think it's like, oh, if outside your window they're setting up something or they're changing, but it is something incredible. So that I definitely was able to. I mean, when you were there, we were texting.
Yes.
I felt like I was like a part of that with you, but yeah, I mean, also similar, like some similar things in terms of the travel with the family, and that's obviously I think that's going to be a theme that people will hear beat into them throughout this whole episode, if I had to guess.
Definitely. What I will say before we drop off the Rogers Center piece, I will say that it's changed the way that I watch any kind of Rogers Center events. So anytime that I see the Rogers Center on TV, I'm always trying to find like the room or the area where my rooms were. So over the last few weeks, Taylor Swift dropped a docuseries on Disney Plus, which is really good. It basically documents her entire Eras tour. And they show some footage from when she played the Rogers Center, which my wife and my older daughter were at the show. So the entire time I'm watching and trying to obviously manipulate and kind of see like if I were in the room, what would that experience be like? And I was talking to Beth about it as well. Some events like baseball, you can clearly watch from the room. Other events like Taylor Swift, the stage blocks the room window, but you can still hear the show. So basically the thought or mind process is like, hey, if there was an event that I wanted to see at Rogers Center, I would probably stay in that room for multiple nights and one night experience it like, in a seat and buy a ticket, and another night probably try to watch it from the room, similar to how we did with baseball this year, which was a lot of fun. So Taylor Swift, the stage blocked it, so it seems like you could hear it, but you probably couldn't watch it. Marcus, are you still there? Your Wi-Fi may or may not be in. Can I hear you? Can you talk? Okay, it looks like we might have lost Marcus again, so I'm going to continue on some of my events from the year. So what I will say is the next question I was going to ask is what was my or his favorite professional moment for the year? So meaning like if there's like a work situation or work something that I really, really enjoyed. So I try not to talk work too much, but there was one thing that I can talk about that I really, really did enjoy was I went to Texas and I presented at an industry forum, which was really just a lot of fun. So the fact that I was invited to go and present there was great. Presented to a few hundred people. Was able to kind of walk through my experiences, came across as, a leader in the industry, which, I guess ego-wise generally have, felt really good. And I was able to help a lot of people in terms of sharing my situations and sharing my story with them in terms of how I use it. Made a lot of connections, which was great. I'm going to pause the recording for a second until Marcus comes back. Okay, looks like we got through all of our tech issues. Glad to see that everything is where it needs to be at this point. With that said, Marcus, now that I've walked through my favorite professional moment of the year, do you have any professional moments, meaning like work-wise, that you'd like to talk to that you're excited about or you're proud of from 2025?
Yeah, I had two. The first is gonna be, I actually had my first business trip in about 5 years. I've had a couple of jobs since 2020, and most of them didn't involve travel, and work travel is something that I love. And I had an awesome business trip where it was really just like to get to meet my coworkers in person for the first time. So while that wasn't like an accomplishment per se, it was definitely one of my favorite professional moments.
Awesome.
And then the other kind of comes back to what we are usually talking about when I'm on this podcast, which is something wrestling related, sports card related, what have you. In terms of my sports card sales this year, I had my best year I've had, including selling three of my top five highest sports card sales all came in 2025. So that was something that I'm really proud of, and that's something I really hope to continue on into 2026.
Very cool. Real quick on the sports cards, so I'll say for myself, like obviously through the help of you about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, I got back into sports cards and got into grading and all sorts of stuff like that. And I personally did have quite a crazy sports cards year as well. So through you, mostly wrestling, which I got some really good hits, graded some stuff, some for my personal collection, some stuff I sold, and a couple of random baseball, which I was just bored one day and kind of joined a baseball break. Ended up hitting, was it a Roki Sasaki? I think he's a rookie pitcher out west, I think for the Dodgers, whatever it was. I ended up, got the card, was able to sell it for like a decent amount of money, let's say. Definitely things that 30 years ago wasn't really capable of doing because eBay wasn't a thing, or not really ish, but like it's incredible to me how technology has helped with stuff. But like the whole breaking mentality and how whatnot works is just insane. So really excited about that. Hopefully cards continue to go the way they've been going, and it doesn't become like oversaturated like in the 80s and 90s where you had 73 different companies and eventually people just kind of stop caring. So I guess we'll see what happens. I know with wrestling cards specifically, WWE, each box seems to get tougher and tougher to get. It gets more and more expensive. So curious if it can sustain, and if Topps eventually adjusts and either makes more supply or how that'll look. So I guess time will tell, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think, without just going down a complete rabbit hole and changing the topic of this whole podcast, I think we will definitely see some right sizing. We won't be at a point, like you just mentioned, where you have, 50 different companies making wrestling cards or 50 different companies making sports, any league like that. The contracts kind of at this point have made it so there will be one card provider. But I do think that Topps is going to hit a tipping point in 2026 where they need to change their distribution. And I really hope that they do personally, because like I said, if I want to continue this, my side hustle into 2026, I need something to change there, because it's certainly a lucrative, job if you're doing it full time. If you own a card shop, there's a ton of money to be made. But if you're a small fish like me, it's at a point where they're making it pretty hard to accomplish.
Yep. And from a Topps perspective, I'm getting an echo. Is that better? Okay, cool. From a Topps perspective, it's all high margin. Like I don't obviously know what their input costs are in terms of licensing with Major League Baseball or players or autographs, but based on what they're selling boxes and cases and packs for nowadays, like I have to believe that somebody's making money somewhere just based on the price point. So we'll see how
that was the whole change, was that Topps was seeing that resellers were making the high margin. They would sell a box to a retailer, and they would have their MSRP, their manufacturer
suggested retail price. Yes.
Yeah. And then they would go and sell it for way more than that. And Topps was like, well, if that's happening, we'd rather be the one selling it for way more, so we make that markup instead of someone else. And that's how we kind of get to where we are right now.
Yeah, I remember growing up, and we'll get off cards in a second or whatever, but I believe packs of cards when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s actually had the price point on the pack. Like I feel like I remember looking back, it said 50 cents or $1 or whatever it was on the pack. I'm guessing because of various federal pricing rules and regulations, they probably can't or don't want to do that, because as I find out at work all the time, manufacturers cannot set price, the final price, whatever. So there's probably rules or reasons why they can't or won't do that.
Right. So that's the issue, is they can have a suggested price,
Right.
but it doesn't need to be followed, and that's what's happening.
Of course, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so next topic that I wanted to ask about for 2025. So favorite wrestling moments. So this could be either moments you saw on TV that you're like, wow, that was great, I loved seeing it, or shows you went to, or just things that you experienced. So I do have a few, but I'll let Marcus, you can go first if you want to talk through some of your favorite wrestling moments from 2025.
Yeah, this was really tough to narrow down. I have it down to 5, and that was really hard to do because, as you said, like we had different ways we could look at this, whether it was, something you experienced, something that you watched, whether it was in person on TV. But I got it down to 5. So I'm gonna say my number, and these are not in any order per se, but my number 1 is a clear-cut favorite here, and that was that Evolution weekend with my daughter.
Of course.
There was just everything about that weekend. We left our house, like I said, we got a flat tire, and my daughter lost it for a minute. Like there was really nothing taking her off of that high. Like this is a 4-year-old sitting in a car for an hour and a half waiting for someone to come change a flat. And she was not okay for about 1 minute. And that was because she thought she was going to miss her first meet and greet that she was so excited about that I had been hyping up. So, the time we got to Atlanta, we walked in, we made it to our meet and greet. And then she was had behaved so well, I added in more. We were supposed to go to one show. She had burned off no energy during the day because we spent the whole day in the car. And I was like, hey, you want to go to this other show? And she said yes. And I mean, it started with, we got to our seats for that. I bought seats in our hotel room, literally, which was attached to the arena. And we everything, she was having fun. So first we do our first meet and greet. We were supposed to meet Nikki Bella. We actually got a little early. So I threw in a meet with Stephanie Vacker, which now looking back, she has been shot to the moon since then. So that was, a great photo op. And it was just great to see, that was my daughter's first meet and greet. She went up with me. She was a little timid, and then seeing how she just kind of let loose after that. The next we go the Nikki Bella line, we get to the front, and she just walks up and just gives this wrestler a huge hug. And you could just tell that this wrestler was feeling it. And then after that, we started doing more meet and greets, and she was like, Daddy, do you have to be in this picture? Can I just take it by myself? Depending on who the wrestler was, I let her or not. If it was someone I didn't have a picture with,
sure,
you put kibosh on that. But so just all that. And then we go to our event the first night. And it was Serenade's main event. It was Bill Goldberg's retirement. But they announce who's going to be on the card ahead of time in a wrestling match. But there's what's called dark matches, which are not televised. They're really just get the crowd in a good spot. And we sat down, and without knowing, the first song that hit was Chelsea Green's, who is my daughter's favorite wrestler by a long shot.
Right.
And just the look on her face, the smile, and it just stayed there all night. And then Randy Orton came out, who my daughter to that point had no real interest in, and she is belting out his song at the top of her lungs. And this just continued all weekend. The second day was the women's show that we went down there for, Evolution. And we had great seats. We were second row, ringside, and she was just having the time of her life. And then Chelsea Green, of course, came out for her match. And, there's a lot of people in an arena. Wrestlers probably can't see that many people, but within 2 rows, we're pretty visible. And there are no other 4-year-olds standing on their chair screaming how you're her favorite or whatever else. And Chelsea Green, this wrestler, she gave my daughter 30 seconds of her time that we have discussed for hours. She came to the rail, took a selfie with her. She took my camera, started taking selfies. And then for me, the high point was after later on in the night, Stephanie McMahon, who is WWE's former CEO, she had done something in the ring, left the ring. And so I saw her walking towards this little lounge that I knew we had access to because I had gone to that bar earlier, and that was the bathroom we had been using. And we followed her. And I was just like, hey, Stephanie, would you mind taking a picture with my daughter? Turned around, biggest smile on her face, saw Lexi in her Chelsea Green shirt, skirt, everything. And was of course, and just held her in this moment, this picture, 2 genuine smiles. And then when Stephanie said to my daughter, are you having fun? And Lexi was wearing earmuffs, so I didn't realize how loud she was. She just screams in her face, this is the best night of my life. it was everything. So that hands down was, number one.
Of course.
Everything else I had wasn't close to that, but I did have a couple others. In terms of like my experiences for the year, meeting CM Punk at WWE World in Las Vegas was pretty high on the list. First off, he's someone I've wanted to meet. I've never got a picture with him, and I have pictures with hundreds of wrestlers, so that was great. But the other thing that made it special was that the group of guys I went to WrestleMania with, we did that photo op together. We all had the matching jerseys that Daniel and I, wore to when we were on your podcast. So it's a really cool, not just for me that I got to meet CM Punk, but I did it with this group of guys that like now I have this memory myth that I did the whole trip with. So that's a big one. John Cena's retirement match. I did go to that. That was about 2.5 weeks ago. That the whole spectacle of it was amazing. If you're not a wrestling person, like the only thing that I could compare it to, and this sounds so outlandish, is like when Kobe had announced he was retiring. He was the only player who like did that, announced at the beginning of the season, and basically everywhere he went, teams like honored him and were giving him stuff. That's kind of how the John Cena retirement tour has been, which is what they've called this year. But just being there, this is a guy who, through my peak wrestling, like my peak interest in wrestling, he was the guy. And he's still the guy. He's been the guy. And to be in the arena and watch him, have his last match, and just the appreciation and the respect that I felt, let alone, everyone, was great. And that I would say would probably be a moment that would still be one of my top 5, even if I wasn't there.
Right.
My my fourth, I would say, was the match at Evolution between Rhea Ripley and Io Sky. It was just a phenomenal match. I mean, seeing it with my daughter again made it special, but it was one of the greatest matches I've ever watched, period, in person or not. The ending I thought was a little crazy with their, someone else entering themselves in the match, coming in and then winning the match. That if I wasn't there, maybe would have taken away a little from it, but being there and my daughter seeing like a big championship change hands, was big. And then my favorite thing that I did not see live was John Cena's heel turn. I thought it was genius. I thought it was something that no one expected, but everybody had wanted for years. And then they did it at a point where no one wanted it, which evoked even more passion from wrestling fans, even if negative. That's what you want. Yep. So those are my top 5. And some of them were in person, some of them were not, some of them are personal, some of them are not. But that's where I will land for 2025 in Marcus Perkal's wrestling world.
Awesome. So thank you for sharing. What I'll say is, for me, my wrestling moments for 2025 weren't necessarily like match specific. I think for you, similar to like taking your daughter to Evolution, they're probably more kind of like experience specific, let's say. So okay. I would say like my top one would probably be, or I'm not going to rank them, but I guess the first one I'll talk through is about a week and a half ago, I took both my daughters to the AEW Ring of Honor Collision tapings at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City. Similar to my mindset with my vacation back in November with the family, I recognized that from a wrestling perspective, there was a point in life where my kids would go to a bunch of shows with me. Then they got older, they kind of outgrew it. This one was one where like I had gotten a ticket for myself, and I said to them, because I saw on Ticketmaster the tickets next to me were still open, hey, do you ladies want to go? And they were both like, yes. So for me, I was like, this is pretty great, because I mean, I'd love to experience one more wrestling show with them, and recognizing the entire time that this will realistically probably be one of, if not the last wrestling show that me and the two girls go to. So for me, that was always top of mind for me as the experience went. So we sat really close. We sat first row in one of the corners. Show was fun. Before the show, we had some meet and greets with some wrestlers. I got pictures with some of the wrestlers, but I very quickly recognized that like they didn't want to be in pictures with wrestlers. Like they were there to kind of experience it, and not necessarily like me in terms of getting the pictures with wrestlers, because they don't really care who these people are. So like for me, that was kind of like a sign that like, hey, they're here to maybe experience it with me one last time, maybe watch me experience it, but they didn't necessarily need to have the picture with Brian Keith or the picture with the Outrunners or girls like that. So I get it. But also, part of me was excited they wanted to go. Part of me was also, a little, I don't know how to describe it, or whatever, just knowing that this is probably the last, if not the last show they come through with me. So that was a big piece for me. Another one I would say was back in November involving you, Lucas, and Daniel, just a full day of wrestling. So back in mid to late November, Daniel, Marcus, and Lucas is a friend of Marcus's and friend of the show, went to back-to-back wrestling shows in New Jersey. So Marcus flew up at the American Dream Mall. They had a GCW wrestling show from 2 to 5. And then we went to AEW Full Gear Wrestling at the Prudential Center that night. And for me, it was just amazing. Like looking back, like I have very vague memories of any of the actual matches. I mean, there's a couple that kind of like jump out at me. But for me, it was a lot of just like hanging out, catching up. I mean, Marcus lives in South Carolina, so I see you once, maybe twice a year, if that. Lucas, I think I ran into him at WrestleCon back in August. And Daniel, I see him at work all the time, but it's obviously a different dynamic versus, you know, hanging out all day, having a couple of drinks, watching wrestling, and just kind of just, you know, catching up on life and just experiencing it. So for me, that was pretty great. Last one I would say would be Slammiversary for TNA Wrestling back in August, back in July, I guess it was. Daniel and I went out to Long Island, my first time with UBS Arena. We sat first row, really enjoyed the pay-per-view, had a lot of fun. And just a full day of just hanging. I mean, Long Island's a real pain in the butt to get to, but just, you know, the drive out there, the drive back, staying over, just the overall event was just a lot of fun just to be there. So that was really cool. Next question, maybe I'll go first in this one, and then I'll let you follow up.
I feel like you made me feel a little guilty there that you included me in your moment. And I
no, I hope you don't.
Well, no, but I'm joking. But
yeah.
that was an awesome weekend. I think we acknowledged that multiple times during the day before the day even ended.
Yes.
And I can firmly say, had I not had this like Lexi weekend, that easily it was great. I mean, it's like AEW, they put on there's criticism of people say, you know, how their pay-per-views that you have to buy them as opposed to them being part of a streaming. But like you get your money's worth. Their pay-per-views are like 6 or 7 hours. So which is crazy to your point. I feel the same way. Like I couldn't tell you a whole lot that went on, even though we watched a ton of wrestling. I can tell you one match because you and I were on opposite sides in terms of our rooting, so we care more about that match as well. But yeah, that's the whole thing is like the wrestling fandom, the passion that we have for it. It's not just that; it's the community. It's you meeting friends. Like you said, Lucas is a friend of mine. Like Lucas is one of my best friends. But if it wasn't for wrestling, we would have never met. Right. If it wasn't for wrestling, you and I would have never met. Right. So it's not just what you see on TV when you're going to these events. It's the experience. And I think that's, you know, why when you said top favorite wrestling moments, I was like, this is so hard because is it the experience or is it, you know, what I'm watching on TV? And that's why I kind of felt like I needed to go a little bit of both. And also the John Cena Hill turn was, of course, legendary. Not as fun as the full day of wrestling, but was pretty legendary. And I think how it was executed was pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I'd say just before we move on to the next topic too, like for me, my wrestling fandom kind of comes and goes over the years. So I've been watching wrestling since 1986. Have I watched consistently every single year? Not necessarily. I mean, throughout life, things happen. Wrestling is cyclical for me anyway. You know, things in life happen. You have kids, this happens, whatever. But for me, at least, you know, I guess in my, let's say in midlife at this point, the fact that I have like a group of friends that like I can go to a wrestling show with and have fun, like even if the wrestling isn't any good or we don't really enjoy the show, just like hanging out with my buddies is just a lot of fun. So really, really enjoy that.
Definitely agree there.
Cool. Gonna go with favorite celebrity meets. So originally it was like favorite like convention meets, but not all meets with celebrities or wrestlers tends to happen at a convention. So I want to go through a couple myself first, and then I'll let Marcus go through a few of his. So back in August, SummerSlam was in New Jersey, and Daniel and I didn't go to SummerSlam, but went to all the GCW wrestling shows that were a few miles away from where SummerSlam was. One of those shows was GCW Bloodsport, which is kind of like almost like a mixed martial arts, like freestyle, whatever. Like it is still, let's say, predetermined, but it's made to look a lot more like real fighting. One of the wrestlers on that show was Natty Neidhart, who is a WWE wrestler. She's been around for years at this point. She's the daughter of the late Jim the Anvil Neidhart. And she's one of my favorite female wrestlers on the scene today. Like she just has it. Everything I've heard is that she's an amazing human being. And she's just like really, really just great to kind of like to interact with. So I was really excited when I found out that she was going to be on that show. After the show, Daniel and I were leaving. We parked in different places because this was the last show we went to before we called it a weekend. And as I was leaving, he texted me and he goes, "Hey, there's a WWE truck or like bus or van parked by a certain exit. He's like, if you ever wanted to meet any of these wrestlers, you should probably go over there and just hang out. I'm like, okay. So he took off, and I decided to take it upon myself, and I hung out by that door. Over the course of about a half hour, basically every WWE superstar that went to watch the show, like backstage, I didn't realize were there, would walk out that door. So like for the first time, I met Natty Neidhart. I met her husband, Tyson Kidd, TJ Wilson. I met Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley for the first time, which for me, after all these years, this is the first time I got pics with them. I got Pete Dunne. Before the show, I got William Regal. So like for me, like it was like one after another. It was amazing. What I'll say to kind of connect this show to my other favorite celebrity meet was after the show, I had seen online a picture of Natty Neidhart after she had won in the ring, and me and Daniel are in the background looking very excited, like just super happy to be there and such like that. So I reached out to the photographer and I bought a copy of the picture. And then in November, Natty did another, Natty did an actual autograph signing as her book came out. So I went to the signing and I brought the picture, brought 2 copies of it actually, and got it autographed, 1 copy to me and 1 to Daniel. Natty was amazing. I interacted with her for a few minutes. I got a picture with her, got the autographed book, got the 2 pictures. And so like, again, these 2, I guess, interactions are both revolved around Natty Neidhart, but she was just amazing in both of those. So anything, if you're a wrestling fan out there, you hear anything about Natty, or if you were curious about her, definitely buy her book, definitely follow her stuff. She seems like a fantastic human being and just a great person overall. Last one that I wanted to mention also are actually podcast related. So having this podcast, obviously it's a fun hobby of mine, but it's giving me
as the co-host, I don't get this. Was this meet? Are you jumping to the next topic?
No, this would be another wrestling meet that I had.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should not have ruined your podcast.
No, it's okay.
Continue, Jeff.
No, these are podcast memories and moments that will last forever. So thank you, Marcus.
Got it. Okay.
So what I was going to say was, so having this podcast has been fantastic in the fact that it's fun. It's gotten me out of my shell. I've met a lot of people. Again, I met Mary Kate for the first time in person, things like that. But it's also gotten me experiences that I never thought I would get. So one of them was over the past year, I did sponsor PWJ Wrestling twice, which got me to be able to record a podcast live on site and meet a lot of wrestlers that I probably wouldn't have otherwise. So been able to talk to and meet and get pictures with like Charles Mason, Zeta Steele, Deanna Parazzo, Steve Macklin, people who are on TV every week that, I don't know that this podcast gave me any credibility, but I was able to kind of like have a more of a real conversation with them. If you go to IMDb, and I was telling Marcus about this earlier, if you go to Zeta Steele, who's, up and coming Ring of Honor wrestler, or Deanna Parazzo, AW wrestler, go to their IMDb page, like this podcast shows up, which just blows my mind. The fact that I was able to very easily add them as guests and show up there or whatever. So if you're looking through it, you see all their GCW stuff, WWE stuff, any movies or TV shows they did, and this podcast, which was pretty great. And then also, I was going to say, when I did live commentary in May, was pretty great as well. Sponsoring it through this podcast, was able to meet with some people at the wrestling show. There were some snafus, but at the end of the day, I was able to do live commentary with Cheyenne Ortiz, who does a lot of indie wrestling, and just call a match. Was really, really neat. Got pictures with all 3 wrestlers that were in my match. So I got a non-kayfabe picture with the 3 competitors of the match that I called commentary on. Got some really great interactions with them beforehand, saying like, hey, I'm going to announce your match. What do you want me to talk about? Like, what highlights are those? So it was Janai Kai against Diamond Varaga against the Notorious Mimi. So like Janai Kai learning about like, how like she boxes and she trains boxing in real life and stuff like that. And talking about how she's traveled to Japan and things like that. So just having like real conversations with these wrestlers that like the average, let's say, fan would not be able to have. So again, like, I know we're not talking podcast moments yet, but like the podcast definitely helped me get those opportunities and moments and pictures, which at the end of the day, I mean, was a lot of fun. And Marcus, I know you and I both collect pictures with wrestlers. So the fact that I have a picture with the 3 wrestlers, all in one shot where, one might be a bad guy, whatever else like that. Like they just, it's cool, whatever. We'll take the picture and pose for it. Like for me, it's one of my favorite shots of the year. Marcus, I know you've got a lot of really cool celebrity meets or wrestling meets from the year. Do you want to talk through a few?
Yeah. First off, I mean, even though I interrupted you before you got to it, I think that, the part of what makes these pictures special isn't just the moment physically being captured, but it's what goes into that and your experience. So I mean, for you to start this podcast, which you talk about your midlife crisis, and how weird you think it is that you're doing this, and then that you take that to the next level and you start sponsoring wrestling matches, and then that you get to do commentary and get that picture. Like I mean, the picture is incredible, but it's a really cool story. It's something that for me, who also has hundreds of pictures with athletes and wrestlers and celebrities, but I don't have that story at all. So it is interesting. Even if I had that same picture, like let's say I was with you and you're like, oh, take a picture with Marcus, like whatever else, it still would be with the same moment, but a totally different backstory to it, which is part of what makes it. So I love that. In terms of mine, so my list is I think I was able to get this down to like 6 or 7. Again, these are in no order. But one like just crazy moment that happened this year. Logan Paul, who's a YouTube personality turned WWE wrestler. He is known for like not really doing appearances. And I think I discussed this on the episode with Daniel, but myself, Lucas, who we discussed earlier, and our buddy Mike, we were in an Uber heading to WrestleMania, and it was like the perfect comedy of errors of we put the wrong pickup location right before as we're walking downstairs. We were like, oh, we should do a bathroom break. I was like, oh, let me go. Yeah, I left my drink upstairs. Let me go grab that. It's Vegas. I need to be consuming more alcohol, of course. So all this kind of and then our driver just not wanting to follow his GPS at all. All this kind of, we turn out of the hotel. This guy makes a U-turn in the middle of the crowded Vegas street. And we just see all these children like running across the street. And we're like, what is going on? And we see Logan Paul is literally standing in a gas station parking lot handing out Prime. And my buddy, who's the Uber driver, he's like, hey, I'll give you $50 if you stop here for, I think it was 50, maybe it was 20, whatever it is. If you stop here for 5 minutes, let us get out and don't leave. And he was like, all right, deal. And we jumped out. We got pictures with Logan Paul. He was real cool. He took a quick video for Lucas's son. It was just an awesome experience. And that picture is like, some people call that a street meet, but it was just by happenstance. It was not a planned meet. Some of these you pay, what you're getting into, and that just like happening was awesome. And it's just like one of those moments when you look back at a WrestleMania trip where it just like is a standout moment.
Yeah, right before you go any further, so like I love that for so many reasons, right? So number one, obviously it's one of those pictures that's very tough to get, right? Logan Paul doesn't do autos and meet and greets usually, so yeah. You've got a very rare get, let's say. Number two, just you have a great story, right? And the fact that like you have something you could talk about how like it's just how it happened and stuff like that. So it checked out both those boxes. And that Logan was so cool that he made a video for Lucas's kid as well. Like it just seems like it's one of those amazing, just kind of like, I don't want to say like, I don't know, like milestone moments, whatever, but it's just a great memory that you guys will always have that you can share together.
Definitely. Yeah. And again, it's, as I said with yours, it's like the picture is cool, but the whole story, yes. that we got to WrestleMania and like couldn't wait to tell our friends who we were sitting with. Yeah, so that was awesome. I would say the next one, same trip, was again meeting CM Punk. I already walked through that one. Again on this Vegas trip. The Vegas trip has a lot of them. I went to, you always discuss the Major Wrestling Figure podcast. They had a live show, and one of the guests they brought out was going under the name of Danielle Housen. For anyone who's not a wrestling fan, it's Topanga from Boy Meets World, Danielle Fishel. So she is a huge wrestling fan. She came out in makeup dressed as a wrestler, and the seats that we were in was like right by where the guests were walking in now. And I just like, she was walking around. I was like, can I grab a picture? And it's just this great picture because like, yeah, it's Topanga. Like everyone knows her, but she's dressed as a wrestler. So like for me, I think it's a great picture. If you're not a wrestling fan and you met her and she was wearing the makeup, this picture would, be nothing to you.
Well, especially because that's one of those things where like you can meet her at like, a convention or something, but like to get her in that moment with that makeup on, it's such a rare get.
Especially, and then one of the things that she announced in this appearance was that she's getting a figure in this makeup. So now like, I think other than the host of the podcast, maybe one other person got this picture with her. And I don't see her like going to cons and doing appearances dressed as Danhausen. Right. So it's like going to be something, it's like a super rare if you want to call it that. So yeah, that was a really cool one. One other I have two others from that weekend. Katana Chance and Kaden Carter. who Katana Chance is one of my favorite wrestlers. Unfortunately, right after WrestleMania, they were both released by WWE. Kaden Carter is now, I believe, with AEW. And Katana Chance is Casey Catanzaro from American Ninja Warrior fame. So she is the wrestler actually who, like, when I talk about my wrestling card collection, like I collect her cards. I have hundreds of them. I have the, one-on-ones and everything. And, they had a good line. It was a free meet and greet at a WWE event. Like, of course, people want to meet them. People know them. But I went up, I just kind of took my picture. I was just saying how excited I was to meet them. I said I collect her cards. She was like, made a comment. I took out my phone and showed her, like part of the collection. And then I kind of had figured this out when I was waiting in line. I showed her a picture of Lexi, big smile, holding her figure in store. Because we had found it, and Lexi, of course, likes her because that's who I root for. And she was like, "Oh, let's shoot a video for her." And her and Kaden just kind of like sent a video to my daughters, just saying like, how they hope to meet them someday. And again, it's the moment that this captured. Couple other ones that should be pretty quick. Was I mentioned earlier, taking this picture with Nikki Bella and Lexi was great for multiple reasons. First off, like when I gave Lexi this birthday present and we were going, part of it was you get to pick a wrestler you want to meet, and she chose Nikki Bella. My wife likes Nikki Bella because she had her shows on Total Divas and Total Bellas. So I love the fact that in the past I had met Nikki and Brie Bella with my wife, and we have a picture with them, and now I have a picture with my daughter and Nikki Bella. I thought that was just kind of coming a little full circle. I do have to get my other daughter Rory a picture with Nikki Bella at some point. And then my last one, and this is just, a wrestler that I've been a fan of for a long time and never had an opportunity to meet. And at WrestleCade last month in North Carolina, Kazuchika Okada was there, who has been a big name for a long time, just recently came over to America full time. And he was just a really friendly guy. I was, taking all the figures I had to get signed and the pictures. And he's, English is not his first language, but he's pretty conversational. He was just like, "You must be a really big fan." And I was like, I am. And it was just like funny to hear a wrestler acknowledge that. But it was, just again, a nice interaction, a quick photo, and, one that I'll, that I'll cherish for a while.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. And again, as we said before, like wrestling, has events and experiences, but a lot of it is about like what you feel, right? Like what you feel coming out of a movie or after watching a TV show, or in wrestling, it's what you feel at the moment, whether from what you see or what you've heard, or even like who you've experienced it with. So lots of different ways to experience it. There's no right or wrong. It's just however you do it. Just kind of it is. One of the last set of questions here was favorite podcast moments from the year. So this is episode 63. I think in 2025, I put out, I don't know, a majority of it because I started in midsummer 2024. So I probably put about 40 or so episodes out this past year. Let me walk through a few of mine first, and then I'm curious to hear what your favorite moments were, or episodes, or whatever else like that. So what I'll say, first of all, for me, one of my top moments from the year was our two-parter on Mania in Vegas with you and Daniel from back in, I guess it was like April or May. Marcus and Daniel had very interesting perspectives on my perspectives, and the fact that I think initially going into, you guys were like, "Oh, Jeff's going to feel like garbage because we went and he didn't go." Versus for me, I can proudly say this. When they were in Las Vegas for WrestleMania, I was on vacation with my family, and I was living through them. Like I told Marcus and Daniel, I said, "Send as many pictures as you can. I want to see it through your eyes. I want to experience what you're experiencing, and I want to learn about the events. Like not necessarily like, hey, did Cody Rhodes win? But like, some of the interactions with wrestlers before and after the show, or what you guys are doing, whatever else like that." So to experience it live while it was happening via pictures, and then to record a two-part podcast, hearing you guys talk about it and hearing about, what you guys have done. And this was the first time that I think you and Daniel had hung out for more than like 5 minutes at a time. Like it was, for me, it just felt good. Like it was the podcast and just like wrestling as a whole, bringing people together, which I just love that whole concept, which I really enjoyed. Additionally, what I'll say is the end of part one was one of my favorite podcast moments ever, where I was making a joke, and I've teased the clip multiple times on Instagram without showing the beginning of the clip for reasons. But basically in the clip, I started talking about like, hey, shout out to Daniel's wife, Paula, and shout out to Marcus's wife, Carrie, and shout out to Marcus's mom, Jerry. I'm not going to shout at my mom because I'm sure she's not watching this show. And as soon as I said that, the three of us just started dying laughing hysterically. So I've got a great 45-second clip, which is the three of us laughing and me fighting for my life to get the close for the show out. Which for me, like, I've watched that clip dozens of times, and I'm almost crying laughing every time that I rewatch it. So that was just a moment for me that I just lives on with me. You know what I mean?
I will jump in. I will say,
Yeah.
that was my number one pod moment was the closing of episode 41. That's on my list. I refer to it as the laughing fit. I might have been a little intoxicated, which probably made it even better.
Sure.
But that hands down was my number one moment from the podcast.
Yeah, I was stone cold sober, and I was still laughing hysterically because for me, it's just the moment. There's some personal things going on, whatever else like that, and his name dropping, and also something I didn't mention too was I think it was that episode. It might have been the cards episode when we were waiting for Marcus to join. It was me and Daniel, and Daniel's wife Paula like walked in the room behind, and I just right away go, and welcome to the podcast. Here's our guest for the week, Paula Ireland, and she just storms right out of the room, which is a very funny moment that I was trying to see how I can include Daniel's wife as much as possible. So I just love that. The other two parts I would say are ones that I alluded to earlier. Number one was when I did live commentary, I guess, at a show in May with Cheyenne Ortiz, which again, the video and the audio of that match are at everybodyhasastorypod.com if anybody wants to watch that or listen to it. A lot of fun. For me, it was like, I don't know that I was amazing. I was fine, I guess, perfectly adequate. I did my research going into it, talking to all the wrestlers, but it was like a bucket list item to do live commentary at a show. And the fact that I have the clip and I have the audio, for me, it was great. Not necessarily a podcast moment, although I did play some clips of it on the podcast, but it's something the podcast got me. And then the other piece I would say would be the PWJ shows that I did where I recorded live on site at the shows. The audio is fine, not the greatest, but when you're in a live situation like that where the Wi-Fi is not great and there's fireworks going off and people are screaming and yelling and wrestlers walking by high-fiving and cursing at each other, I think I did the most that I could with it. But I mean, I got a list of guests that I never would have gotten otherwise. So really love that. And last thing I would say would be my episode with Mary Kate Anthony, which I think was back in like May or June. Story being that like I had been to probably easily 75 or 100 shows that she was at over the years. Her and I both grew up in the New York, New Jersey, Philly area, ECW shows, Madison Square Garden shows, Meadowlands shows, but we never had interacted or engaged at all. And then through the Major Wrestling Figure Podcast Facebook group, we had, conversated or spoken a bit over the years. And then having the opportunity to record a podcast with her was my first time actually talking to her, and recorded for like an hour or so. And then when I went to Orlando back in September, we actually went to an NXT wrestling show together. So for me, it was, getting to know the person and not just the fan. And then having, spending some time with her. Obviously, I did throw up in Chili's bathroom when I was with her as well. Side story there. But just the overall, things that like the podcast brought together and wrestling brought together, and been able to experience that with somebody else. Marcus, thank you, Marcus. Do you want to share? I know you talked about the laughing fit. Any of your favorite podcast moments from the year?
Yeah, I have a few. I will just give a little disclaimer that I apologize to Mary Kate, Zach Linder, anyone else who I know personally that has been a guest this year. If they did not make this list, I've listened to every episode, so I've heard them all, but I tried to keep this short. Number one far and away was that laughing fit. There for just so many reasons. My others, so actually, and I have four here. So that was my number one.
Awesome.
And then I'll go 4, 3, 2 since you already gave away number one.
Sure.
So my fourth top pod moment of the year was episode 49, which was the 1-year anniversary show. And that was for a couple reasons. First off, I had known what was going to happen that episode, that Daniel was going to be the host and you were the guest. And I like the concept. I think it was, interesting for you to come at this from a different light as the guest. And I enjoyed the conversation. Also, since I knew this was coming and I was actually getting ready to get on a red-eye flight, I texted Jeff and I was like, hey, can you drop this podcast 3 hours earlier than usual so I could download it and have it for the flight? And Jeff did it. So, but I thought that was a great episode. It was really fun. My number 3 is going to be the beginning of episode 38, which was the debut of your theme song.
Ah,
For obvious reasons, since I didn't really write it, but since I created it using AI. And number two is actually there's something about this episode that I really liked. It was episode 46. And it was your conversation with Megan Fernandez about Epic Universe.
okay.
And I'm not sure exactly what it is. I come up with a bunch of things, I think. Well, first off, I appreciate people's fandoms since I have many myself. And theme parks is like not really one of my fandoms, but I appreciate them. I love going to them. I haven't been to a Universal park in over 20 years. But I appreciated hearing, people's perspective on something like this, and just how passionate people get about things that aren't things that I'm passionate about. But I thought it was a great conversation and definitely something that, like, at some point when we talk about our goals for 2026, one of them is getting my family on, a real vacation this year. And I'm not sure if we'll end up at Universal Studios or Disney. They're both possible. But definitely something that at some point my family will be there and I will be going back, listening to these nuggets and trying to, recreate other people's trips, knowing that people have done some of the homework for me and I can just steal that and run with it.
Of course. So yeah, thank you for sharing. And I'll say this too. I mean, it's obviously goes without saying, as it has in the past, if and when you're ready to plan one of those trips, reach out. I'm obviously here to help you out. With regards to the episodes, yeah. So the Daniel 1-year anniversary episode, it was a lot of fun. It was amazing. What I'll say is, now that I'm a year and a half into this journey, I'm trying to find creative and different ways to keep the listeners and also keep myself interested, right? So this past year, I had him host while I was the guest. You've been co-host a couple of times. I've had Megan as co-host. Like, it's getting tougher and tougher to find like new guests. So I'm trying to find new spins on things or different ways to get different topics out there or get different stories out there and such like that. So for me, I absolutely love that. And again, Megan on, the episode for Epic Universe, as well as the other episodes she's been on. Megan's amazing. Would love for her to get her own podcast at some point. She has a very busy life. She's actually in Disney World right now. So I'm living through her at this point through some pictures. But I would love to get Megan on more often because she's just an incredible co-host as well as guest too. And yeah, thank you for sharing all that. Really do appreciate it. We are running late in time, so I did want to leave time here for what we're thankful for and any 2026 goals. So first off, I'll say what I'm thankful for, as I think it probably came across a bit on this episode. First of all, my family, my friends, my support system. So I have an amazing wife. I love hanging out with Beth. I love traveling with her. I love just hanging around the house with her and such like that. So, and I'm looking forward to, in the next, let's say, decade or less, when us are at some point retired and just kind of like go to Disney World every day or like, hey, what do you want to do? Like for me, retirement's not scary to me. Like assuming the money is there and the numbers are there. Like a lot of people I talk to are afraid of retirement because they're like, well, what do I do? Like, what's that look like? For me, it's not the what's that look like or what do I do that scares me. It's will I have enough money? And as much time and effort and energy that I put into my personal finance and investing and saving, like if I saw anybody else with numbers that I have, I'd be like, oh, you'll be totally fine. Myself looking at my numbers, I'm obviously re-looking at them 1,000 times. And I'm like, what about this? What about that? Just overthinking it. So for me, again, the idea of eventually one day retiring with my wife, hanging out, going to the parks all day, just doing nothing, whatever else like that. Like I can't wait. Like I'm really looking forward to that. Also, my daughters, like super excited for them and about them and with them. They're amazing. They do great things. They're hard workers, great students. They're just, I love hanging out with them, right? Like the fact they went to the wrestling show with me because, I asked them like little things like that, I just love the experiences and the memories. Recognizing that, this version of our relationship won't last forever. Like I recognize that too. And without getting too deep into it, like I've learned from other situations that like as things change, you need to evolve as well. So, right now my daughters are 18 and 15 and I have a certain relationship with them. As they get older, trying to evolve it more into like a friendship or mentorship as opposed to like, I'm your dad, that's why. Not that I really would ever say that, but you know what I mean? So just kind of being mindful of that and being careful of that and hoping that like, they want me in their life as they get older and hoping that they want to be friends with me and that they want to do cool stuff with me, stuff like that. So really thankful and happy with that. Lastly, like I said, the support system. So like Marcus, people like you, people like Daniel, my buddy John, Chris, Bill. I'm not going to name every single person in my life that I text with from time to time or all the time, but like, everyone who's in my life that, means something to me, who you are. Like the fact that like, at this point in my life, people want to hang out with me, or people are interested in what I have to say. Like I appreciate and respect that, and I just love that for myself and for everybody around me.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean the cliche answer, but the majority of what you said. Thankful for my friends and my family. The community around me that I've built, and the community around me that's come, to me, that I've known forever and that I've met recently. I mean, in terms of my family, I think it's been pretty clear throughout this episode how I've been talking about. I've only really been talking about Lexi. That's not anything about Rory. Just right now, Lexi has had this wrestling moment, and it's something that I never thought I would get. And since I grew up watching wrestling with my dad and my grandma, it was something that was like, when this opportunity presented itself, I was like, I need to milk this for as long as I can.
Of course.
But having my kids 3 and 5, watching them literally grow every day and learn and tackle new obstacles. Lexi started kindergarten when she was only 4 years old. And excelling, and Rory being, 3, just literally learning new things every day and being a part of that. It's so incredible. Obviously, Carrie, my wife, we've known each other for, we were saying, about 10 years. We had this conversation last night when I was looking at what I did on New Year's 10 years ago, and we were having those awkward texts like we had been dating for a month. And, we made a huge change. We up and moved down to South Carolina 4 years ago just because we wanted something a little bit different in our lives. And it's been pretty incredible. The support system around here, the community that we've built and that's welcomed us, is all things that I am, super grateful for. I mean, my in-laws moved down here. My mom moved down here. That's really important. Seeing, how, when I say my family, like, of course, you think of like your family who lives in your house, but like just seeing my kids, the time they get with their grandparents, my father, who, isn't local to here, he's in New Jersey, but just, seeing that time, seeing how much love they get and how much love I get, gratification I get seeing that. And the relationship I have with, my family outside of my kids. I mean, Carrie is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. We just kind of love life together. I wish I could focus on retirement, but I do have some more time before I get there than Jeff does. But, my relationship with both my parents, I have great relationships with them, with my in-laws, with my brother, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, my niece and nephew. Just, not everyone has that. And I don't take it for granted. So I do sometimes, like, be honest, I do. But, it's something that's really important to me. And then, the friends in the community, Jeff, as you said, our friendship is pretty new. I think we met for the first time in 2024 at GCW in New Jersey. And I mean, you and I text every day. Lucas has been brought up, and I have my friends that aren't from the wrestling sphere, my friends from college, my friends from, growing up. And like I said, all the friends that we've made here. One thing I just will touch on, is 2025. It's been a great year if you listen to everything we said. 2025 has also been a tough year. There's, there are some things going on in this world that maybe we don't want to talk about too much. But one thing I will say is, being a Jewish person has not been easy in 2025. And one thing that I find absolutely incredible, last week, my wife and I decided we wanted to have a Hanukkah party. And in South Carolina, we have a couple of Jewish friends. There's not a whole ton. But we just invited all of our friends to our house to have, a party and to educate them on what Hanukkah is. Some of them don't know. And it was pretty great that we had like 40 people in our house last week, who come together and surround us for the things that we find important. It doesn't matter how different you are than someone else, that you care about the people, you care about things that are important to the people that you care about. And then the last thing I'll say that I'm thankful for is my health. I mean, I've had, like I said, I've lost a lot of weight. I was definitely overweight. I was looking at some pictures earlier. Having my health is super important. And it's something that's great. So I get to, I'll be around to watch my kids grow older, hopefully. I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure that I'm there for that. And that's part of my goals for 2026 as well.
Amazing. Well said. Thank you for sharing. So what I'll say, my 2026 goal, just to kind of put it out there before we end, is, so I had said for 2025, my goal was to average 10,000 steps per day for the entire year, which, knock on wood, hopefully by the time this thing drops, I will have hit that. My goal for 26 is the same, but kind of a little bit more. So while 2025 is based on averages where, let's say in September I hit 11,000 steps, I could do 9,000 steps in October and kind of offset it. my goal for 2026, assuming that I stay healthy and I'm good for the year, is to not only average 10,000 steps per day for the year, but for every month to average 10,000 steps per day for that month. So I'm not looking to kind of make up for, have a slack month to catch up, whatever. Again, recognizing that, like, things happen, allergies, could get sick, hurt, whatever else like that. But looking to kind of see how many months, hopefully 12, I can get that average per day for the month as well. So we'll see. I'm trying to kind of take 25's, let's say, accomplishment or, achievement and kind of take it to the next level. So we'll see how that goes. Marcus, did you have anything else you wanted to add, or you pretty much covered on your 26 goals
I have 5 goals for 2026, okay, but I'll
awesome.
keep them all quick. The first, I want to continue, working out, continue this weight loss journey that I'm on. I do have a goal weight in mind, not that I will say publicly, but I still have a long way to go to get to where I want to be. And that number, is going to be my long-term goal. And what I would love to do this year is not just continue working out, but incorporate more than just Peloton, whether that's, weights or planks, body weight, whatever it is. I'm not going to set a finite goal on that, start lifting or anything like that, but doing more than just the Peloton for multiple reasons. It's better for the body and it will help me lose weight faster. The second is I want to, I call it's the bonus room here, because in South Carolina you can't have a basement, but it's this room right behind my office, and I want to clean it. But that's the goal I failed at this year, because cleaning it means selling a lot of stuff. It's my stockpile of things that I need to sell, extra items, collectibles, things I've acquired over time that no longer interest me. And that's the thing that got worse this year. Was I started moving through this, and then all of a sudden I started cleaning up, and there's more and more in there. So I want to sell more, which ties right into my next is I want to be more active on Whatnot. I love selling cards. I love the interaction. I love the experience. And I want to do more of it. And like we touched on earlier, there are some issues right now with me getting the types of cards that traditionally I'm selling on Whatnot. So I need to get more creative. And that's my goal, is to figure out whether it's selling single cards or doing different types of breaks, smaller breaks, that kind of thing. But staying active on there, because it's a great way for me to socialize and, talk to people. It's also a revenue stream. So that will help me out for the year. My last two, I touched on the other one earlier, is I would like to have a family vacation this year. That's a goal I'm putting in place, that we book it and get it done. My family of 4, we've never had a real vacation, stay at a hotel or at a house, whatever it is. And just we've gone on trips, but it's always, whether it's with my in-laws or with my, my mom and my brother's family, which is amazing. Don't get me wrong. But when those happen, I have the benefit that maybe then it's not on my expense. So this is me getting my finances in place and doing the booking so I can give my family this experience this year is something. And the last, I want to try to do that grateful exercise, which is every day, listing 3 things that I'm grateful for, whether it's in the morning or at night, just some point during the day, taking that time and just looking and making sure that I'm thinking about the great things that I have in my life.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for sharing. And obviously, some people are more open or less open about sharing what their goals are. So again, really appreciate your transparency and what you're putting out there. And last thing I would add too is, if anything I can help you out with, as you know, whether it be vacation planning or even personal financial planning, just let me know. I'd love to just kind of chat with you in terms of share with you some of my systems and see if maybe you can integrate some of them into what you do.
You can also buy a lot of cards for me to help me afford my vacation.
Yeah, if anybody wants any top Sapphire Chrome cards, I might. You need
top Sapphire. I'm your guy.
I might know a guy. Yes.
As the co-host, I'll just go right to the close here.
Go for it.
If you're looking to buy boxes of top Sapphire cards, please reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at Marcus B Breaks, on Whatnot at Marcus Brandon, on X at Marcus B Breaks, and on eBay at Marcus Brandon Breaks. At some point, I'll get those all to be the same. But for right now, that's what we're rolling with.
Very cool. And before I go to the close here, too, wanted to wish everybody a happy new year, right? So right now, as this episode drops, it is 2026. Thankful for the audience that I've created. Thankful for all the support that I've had throughout the last year and a half of episodes. Just thankful for all the guests, too, the people who are willing to share their stories and maybe go out there when, it's not comfortable, right? It's talking publicly, and there's a risk possibly involved in saying things that off the cuff you might not mean at the moment, but later on could get you into trouble. So really appreciate everyone getting out there. Really excited for some of the future guests that I have. While last week I said I'd be off for a few weeks, I think this time I'm serious. I think this time I do mean it, that I'll probably be off for a few weeks. I do have some guests scheduled for late January, early February. Follow the Instagram to get a head up of when we're going to be back. So Instagram is Everybody Has a Story Pod. TikTok is also at Everybody Has a Story Pod. YouTube at Everybody Has a Story Pod. Email the show directly at everybodyhasasstorypod@gmail.com for all things Jeff Seltzer. You can always check me out at jeffseltzer.com. We are on all podcast platforms, Spotify and YouTube video, audio everywhere else, including Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, Pandora, and anywhere you can find a podcast. And one last reminder, if you go to everybodyhasastorypod.com, you'll see the match between Notorious Mimi, Diamond Varaga, and Janai Kai with me doing live commentary. Obviously, it's 6 months later, so it's not really live, but I did it live in the moment. It was a lot of fun. For me, it was a bucket list. So take a look, listen, let me know your thoughts. With that said, I hope everybody has an amazing new year. If you have any thoughts or comments, definitely shoot me a note. Would love to hear about it, share it, or keep it to myself, however you want to do it. With that said, we'll be back soon. So be good to each other and try to have fun and smile.
Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer. Everybody has a story with Jeff Seltzer.